What is up? It's a Fit Gear Hunter, and today we got a fun one. We actually are going to look at the Fenix 7 alongside the Enduro 2, which is the same exact size and model as the Fenix 7X, and we're going to talk about the differences between the two lineup. I mostly just want to show you how they look sort of directly face-to-face, hands-on on my wrist, and different ways you can see if you want to go for the bigger size of the variant or not. But also, the whole point of this is to actually get your advice. I have been wrestling with which two of these to keep as my long-term watch because I just have a small channel. I can only keep one at a time. And so I am going to ask you to, in the comments below, tell me which one you think I should keep and let you be a deciding factor in which one is going to stay with me for the long term. So getting into the simple summary of differences, then we're going to look at them hands-on, side by side, and talk about the detailed differences as well as see them on my wrist and come back together. But looking at the simple differences, the Fenix 7 comes in 3 different cost structures, so 700, 800, and 900. The 700, you get the base model. You don't get any fancy screens or metal components or multi-band GPS. For the $800 variant, you get solar, but you don't get any of the other bells and whistles. And then for $900, you get solar, you get a sapphire glass, you get a titanium bezel and back, and obviously you get the multi-band GPS, which means it can link to multiple satellites at the same time. Now the Fenix 7, you actually have 2 cost structures, 900 and 1,000. At 900, you get the solar only model, but you don't get multi-band GPS, and at $1,000 you get solar, you get sapphire glass, you get titanium front and back, and you get multi-band. And with any of these, on the Fenix 7X and the Enduro 2, you actually get a flashlight over the Fenix 7. Now the Enduro 2 is now up to $1,100, so the most expensive of all the ones we're going to look at today. And with that, you get that same layer of solar and sapphire glass and titanium and multiband, and you also get an extra $60 all nylon band, which is super light. You get a 2 times brightness flashlight versus the 7X variant, and you get approximately 25% more battery life with the Enduro 2. Plus, it's got an accent color that I think makes it look more appealing. So today, these are my 2 choices, and these are the 2 choices we're going to look at side by side when talk about the Fenix 7, sort of the 7 only variants, as well as the 7X and the Enduro 2 when looking at sort of what they look like in the real world. And these 2 are the ones, so the 7 Solar Sapphire and the Enduro 2. Now, I think the difference between the $1,000 Fenix 7X Solar Sapphire and the Enduro 2 is worth the extra $100 because you get an extra $60 band, you get 25% more backlight, more battery life, you get a brighter, 2 times brighter flashlight, and I just love the way it looks. I love the accent colors that are on the Enduro 2, which I think is worth it because if you're going to spend the money, you also get those features, but you also want a watch that's going to look as good as it possibly can. But for competitive purposes, the Enduro 2 looks and does all of the same things that the 7X does, the Fenix 7X. So when you look at the videos, when you look at these side-by-side hands-on, this is the exact same overall appearance other than the accent colors that you can get on the 7X. And obviously at those different levels, you can get a whole bunch of different changes in what you might have available on the watch itself. Also in simple terms, when you're comparing the 7 to the 7X or the Enduro 2, they have all the same software functions. Now the Enduro 2 brings about a few software functions that are specific for runners, and we're not going to highlight that. And the main thing between the 7 and the 7X or Enduro 2 is the size, the weight, the flashlight capabilities, the battery life. Everywhere else is going to be the same. So let's look at them side by side, talk about and highlight the specific and exact detailed differences, as well as look at it on my arm and then come back together and discuss. All right, so here they are, and we're going to look at a couple things. I left these extra bands on them because this is the Amazon version that is similar to what you would get, and I'll show you that in a second, but I'm already starting to see it just completely wear down. If you can look on one of these sides, you get this little curl that is actually popping up versus the Garmin band that is actually coming with the Enduro is high quality. Every reviewer has said that it's lasted long. There's not been a problem with the Velcro coming off. But for now, let's change these back to the original band so we can see them more clearly side by side. Okay, so here are the two watches, and you can see I wanted to spend some time just showing you the way they look and the overall differences so that you can get an idea of just how they look in real life before I show them to you on my wrist, or even before we talk about the specifics and the functional literal differences between the two. So they both have the carbon gray, they both have the sapphire glass, which is, you know, highly reflective, but it also is a solar panel as well. These are both the solar variants, and the back is the same as well. They both carry the titanium backing, and you can see again the differences. They both have the same bump on them when it comes to the heart rate sensor, both same charging cable. So, you know, when you start to look at the size differences, one on top of the other, you can see that the 7X or the Enduro 2 here, the Enduro 2 is definitely a felt bit thicker. It's 1 millimeter thicker than the 7. And you can see on the Enduro 2 you have those sort of neon green accent color marks, which I love, and the neon green accent button. But these are the overall size differences. So looking at the overall differences, if you were to compare the specs, you basically have a 1.3 inch screen versus a 1.4 inch screen, which is giving you 16% more screen. And that's actually functionally useful. When you go to look at different pieces of data, you're going to be able to see more data a little bit more readily or more clearly. The other way that it's going to benefit is in a workout. All right, so you can see here, you obviously have 8 screens that are basically showing you information. So 8 screens you can access, and you can see somewhat from the camera now how it would look if you packed all that data on there. And then obviously you have other screens that you can sort of show similar comparisons. If you look at the size, each of these pieces of information is just a little bit bigger, a little bit easier to read. Now both of them give the same physiological metrics, which are new. So you have the HRV status, which is, you know, basically new to the Fenix 7 Enduro, Fenix 7X, you know, to all the Garmin watch family. And, you know, you have the new training readiness. Now I haven't had the 7 for as long, so the training readiness is a lot more accurate, but that is a new metric which I did a whole video of, which is super helpful and super useful. They both have the training status, which is the updated training status, which is based on a bunch of different information pieces, and you can see how they look and just how you can read the information, you know, just on one size screen versus the other, coupled with those physiological metrics that you get one to the other. Now, when you look at these and what they provide, looking back at the size details, so the 7, this is going to be the, you know, the titanium version, the solar sapphire, is just the watch itself is 50 grams, and the watch here on the Enduro 2 is 64, and the 7X is 61. So that's basically a 25 to 28% more weight that you're getting. Plus, looking at the size, this is 47 millimeters, this is 51. We looked at them one on top of each other, and if you do just a basic volume calculation, the size overall by volume of the 7X or the Enduro 2 is 25 to 27% larger. So you're getting a healthy chunk difference. So you're getting an extra big, more legible display with more data fields, but you're also getting more weight and more overall girth and size. Looking at the difference between battery life, though, you get a significant amount of battery life on the 7X or the Enduro 2 over the 7. Now, I'm going to focus on the Enduro 2, so the stats aren't quite as good for the 7X, but similar. So you're basically getting 100%, so 20 days to 40 days of standby time if you just look at the averages. You're getting 100% increase of GPS usage. And if you use like the multi-band, all satellite, everything you can, you're potentially getting 200% more GPS usage. And GPS is a stat that I don't really care as much about because it's mostly a CrossFit tracking channel. But at the same time, the GPS is just a measure of when you're fully putting every function on the watch fully to work, how much is it going to be able to last over one over the other. And so you get a 100% increase here at a minimum between the two watches. The other feature that is specific to the 7X or to the Enduro is the flashlight function. That is a super cool function. It's a little bit quirky, but at the same time, it actually is super useful in regular life. That is not on the 7 at all, and it happens to be 2 times brighter on the Enduro. So let's look at how they look on my wrist. Now you can see the Fenix 7 and how it looks on my wrist. My wrist is 177 centimeters. So this is how it looks overall with the normal rubber band. You can see the Enduro 2, which is the same image of what you'd see on the 7X. So you can see that it does cover a much bigger space and maybe even looks a little large. Let's look at it with the nylon band. Here's how it looks with the nylon band. Now the nylon band has a much cleaner look to it. It actually is more comfortable, because the problem with the heavier watches is if you have too much flex here, it actually pushes on the bone beneath because it sort of shakes its way into the bone. But when you have the nylon, you don't feel it as much. So that is how it looks to that. Let's look at it side by side. Okay, this is how they look side by side. Again, 177 millimeter wrist. You can see the differences, you know, when you see those two compared with the band of the nylon band. All right, so in simple terms, if you boil it all down, because they have the same basic content, the same basic guts of what they can functionally do, software or analytically or the stats, what are the simple differences between the 7 and the 7 variants all the way up the chart, as well as the 7X and the Enduro 2? It comes down to a few simple pros and cons depending on which one you're more attracted to. So the pro side of the 7X and 7.2 is the screen size. So you get a bigger screen, 16% bigger, 1.4 inches. You get the flashlight, and you get considerably more battery life. What are the cons that might make you more drawn to the 7 variant itself? Is the size and weight. Obviously, the size and weight might determine how you feel or if it's way too big for your wrist. And then the cost. Obviously, there's a big difference between the bottom variant 7 at $700 and the top variant 7X at $1,000 and the Enduro 2 at $1,100. So now I need your help. Now let's get down to the nitty gritty of what I need you to help me decide on, because I have honestly wrestled with these two. So the Enduro 2, I feel like is just a little bit big for my wrist, and I don't know if I'm actually gonna need all, you know, the extra screen size and the extra battery life. When I look at my hobbies, I do CrossFit, I just, you know, do basic workouts. I'm not on long wilderness hikes. I might, you know, in an off chance go overnight camping or go off for a few days on a vacation and not want to bring a charger, and both can accomplish that basic need. So those are the cons. Is it's more expensive, and just the size difference. Is it too much for my wrist? On the pro side, I really love the bigger screen of the Enduro 2. I love that you can see more data laid out. I love that it's quicker and easier to glean the data when you're sort of glancing at your watch in the middle of a workout, when you're sort of at a broken point of the workout. It's more comfortable to read. I do like the fact that it has double the battery life. I love the fact that it just gets forever battery life in simple terms. When you're coming from watches that were 5 to 7 days and now you're looking at 3 to 4 weeks, I mean, that is actually a plus. And on the Enduro 2 over the 7X, I love the color accents. I love the fact that it's got the carbon gray and then highlighted with the neon green accents around the edge as well as around the button. And then slight pro is the extra band. So the extra band is a nice quality band. I have purchased bands sort of just like it off Amazon, and they have definitively shown to be poor quality over time. So neither of these, when I wear them in day-to-day life, feels incredibly in the way. They don't feel like overly bulky or overly just in the way overall. But let's take a look at how they look on my wrist again before you make your final decision for which one I should buy. Okay, so here's how they look side by side on my wrist. I just want to get as much advice as possible. Okay, here's how the Fenix 7, just the 7 alone is gonna look on my wrist. Okay, and here's how the Enduro 2 or the Fenix 7X, but for me, my decision process, the Enduro 2 looks on my wrist. All right, so what do you think? Is the Enduro 2 look ridiculously big on my wrist and just look like, no, that just doesn't fit your overall arm? Or, you know, is it worth the extra size, extra battery life, the extra screen size, I should say? Does the extra battery life on the Enduro 2 seem like a waste over the basic long battery life that you get on the Fenix 7? I mean, this does have the solar variant, and it's obviously going to last a long time relative to watches of the past. And is the extra cost worth it? Should I just, eat the $200 if this is going to be a daily driver and one that I keep for a while? Is it worth it to have all these things? And that's the bigger question. So with that, please give me your comments. I'm going to take your comments seriously, and in 1 week from today, I'm going to make a decision which one I'm going to keep and which one I'm not. So with that, it's the Fit Gear Hunter. Thanks so much for watching.